In this video, I'm going to be going over how to start your page 1. So the first thing we're going to do is create some text boxes. They're just going to be like placement holders for right now, and then we can go back and edit them later. So the first one I'm going to create is going to start with column 1, and it's going to end with column 2. Then I'm going to create one in each column. Again, don't really worry about placement so much. Just go ahead and create each text box in each column. We can go back and resize them and move them around later. In my first text box, we are going to type a headline. So I'm going to click in that first type box, and I'm going to go to paragraph styles. It tells us we want our paragraph style to be headline, so I'm going to select that. And now we're going to type. Always make sure that you type it exactly as it has it. So whatever's capital, it's capital. If there's a next line, make sure you have it on the next line. So we're going to type the history of the, and then we're going to go down to the next line by hitting enter, Minnie Cooper. So now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and click into my next text box. We're going to be placing our News 1 article into our first text box. So hopefully you have this downloaded from Canvas. If not, go ahead and do this now. I'm going to go to File and Place. And we're going to select News 1. I'm going to go ahead and click Open. All right, so now you see my text is inside that first column's text box. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Now, what you're going to notice is that in this text box, there is a little red, I'm going to grab my selection tool, a little red square with like a plus sign in it. And then you'll also notice in the bottom, it says 1 error. And what that means is that there's still text below this last line that we can't see. So that's why there's a little plus sign, and that's why there is an error. So I'm going to zoom out again so you can see all of my text boxes in each column. So there's a really easy way to, 1, fix your error, 2, link all of your text boxes together so they all work together as one. So I'm going to click on this little red plus sign, and you'll notice my cursor is going to become like floating text, and it's also going to have a little chain link. So I'm going to click in the second column's box, and now these two are together. But still more article left, so I'm going to click the little red box and click in our third and final column text box. So now that we have these all linked together and working together, you'll notice as we make changes, they will continue to move throughout the text boxes seamlessly. So now you no longer have to worry about it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our type tool, and we're going to change this first like little paragraph, if you will, starting with the history and ending with the ... We're going to change that to subhead 1. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my paragraph styles. I'm going to select subhead 1, and you see it has just moved through the rest of our text boxes. Next, we want to change the rest of our font into our body text. So I'm going to start over here with identity, and I'm just going to scroll all the way through to the first line now of the history to make a large selection. Once again, we're going to go to our paragraph styles, and I'm going to select body text. You see now that it has nice spacing, and it's more readable as well. So each type box is going to end and begin with something different. Now, mine may not be perfect compared to the example, and that's because The example was made in the Adobe PDF, and this is being made in InDesign. But when you work on your actual EOC, everything should line up perfectly. So I just want to bring your attention to one quick thing. You'll see that there is a little plus sign still, even though this is the last sentence in our text. So why that is because there's probably just a little space underneath there. If it's going to bug you, you can grab your type tool. You can click underneath and hit delete or backspace to make sure your last line of text or your cursor ends with your last word. So now if I were to fit this text box to my text, you'll see that little plus sign's no longer there and there's no errors. Now, everything seems to be lining up well as far as when my text ends in the first column with relaunch, beginning with of the, and then beginning with the Mini Cooper for our third one. But if anything is not lined up the way it should be, and I'll just give you an example. So I'm going to make this box a little bit larger. So now you see that this starts with British Motor, which we don't want our third column to begin with that. We wanted to start with Mini Cooper developed. So I'm going to, just like I showed you how to move it, we're just going to click and drag, and there we go. So now Mini Cooper is there. So you can do that with any of these. Same thing. If this was not in the right place, I could move it up a line, and now it's over here, but we don't want that. So just go ahead and make sure that everything ends and begins with what it needs. So now along with our text, we need to make a couple of bold words. So I'm going to have my type tool. I'm going to select the first Mini Cooper in our third text box. And I'm going to come over here to our options bar where it says regular, and I'm going to change it to bold. And then the other thing we're going to change is original Mini, which is 3 lines into the second paragraph in your third column. And again, I'm going to come over here to where it says regular, and I'm going to select bold. So now we pretty much have all of our text things taken care of as far as our news 1. So let's go ahead and we'll go back and do a little bit of spacing. So we see on our example that they want a 1 pica 6 space between our headline and our volume line. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it makes it a little bit easier. And again, I'm going to grab my line tool, hold shift and click and drag to make a line. Now it's a 12-point line, so I'm just going to change that to a 2-point line. And now we're going to change the length to 1p6. And I'm going to hit enter, grab my selection tool, and now I'm going to move this over underneath that line. And I'm going to click on my type box for my headline and just move it up so it is lined up. Now I'm going to delete that little line because I don't want to accidentally leave it in there when I go to turn in my project. Now for the first column text box, it needs to be 35 picas from the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my line tool, click and drag. Again, I'm going to change it from a 12-point line to a 2-point line. And now I'm going to change the length to 35 picas. Enter. And now I'm going to move it so it lines up with my top left corner. You see how it kind of lit up? And now we can see that that's going to be 35 picas from the top. So I'm going to click on my first column text box, and I'm just going to move up, but honestly it would, well, first let me adjust this a little bit because it might cut into where I'm trying to move this to. And now I'm going to click and drag, and you'll notice that I get a little green line that pops up, and that means that that is a line with that line. So it's going to shift. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. Delete this line again because I don't want to forget it's there. And now we're going to align our text boxes as well. So our second column we want to align with the top of our first column. And then we want our third column to align with the bottom of our first column. There we go. Waiting for that green line. There it is. There we go. So now our text boxes are aligned together. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because that third column text box looks a little high. There we go. That's better. All right. So now we have everything aligned. We have our subhead 1, our headline, we have our bold words. So in the next video, we're going to do our little table of contents, and then we can move on to page 2. Don't forget to save your work.